All right, good evening, everybody. It is a few minutes after 5:30. This is our Thursday pre-agenda meeting for the month of August and ahead of our August general regular meeting next week. We are called to order. We are missing two of our board members, Ms. Sledge and Mr. Howe at this point, but hoping that they will be able to join us this evening. We'll begin with an invocation, and that'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll start with the invocation. Father, we thank you for the nourishing rain that we've had this week. We thank you for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon the town of Spencer. And we thank you for the wonderful staff that we have here and the work that they do on a daily basis to improve the quality of life for our citizens and our businesses. We thank you for those beside me that are the decision makers, for the vision of the town, and putting policy into action. We thank you for their wisdom and their guidance, and thank you for the opportunity to work alongside them. We ask that you give us wisdom and discernment as we make decisions this evening and next week, and we appreciate all that you have given and the opportunity that you have given to our town, especially some of the wonderful opportunities that lie before us that we have found out about in recent weeks. Amen. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So this evening we will start with public hearing. Mr. Blunt is going to present on Code of Ordinances text amendment to section 94.02 that deals with the obstruction of sidewalks and alleyways. Mr. Blunt.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, this whole effort started with an alleyway. And I was told by code enforcement there was a disagreement between property owners over the use of the alleyway, and then that discussion spread into a disagreement about the use of the sidewalks. And from there, we came to you last month with what I thought would be a simple solution, with basically giving the authority to mediate that thing. But in your wisdom, you told me you prefer to have a good ordinance that had objective standards in it that we could follow for this business and other businesses. So that's what we've come back to you with. I have a slightly expanded slideshow from what you've seen in the past, and I'll go through it quickly since we don't really have much of the public here tonight, but for the viewing public's purposes, this might stir up some conversation. So, as you know, the alleyways throughout the town are what we consider publicly owned but privately maintained. We do retain the authority to regulate the use of those alleyways. So when we are approached by folks asking us questions about the alleyway, that's what we tell them, that we can mediate problems, we can set ordinances to control them, but we don't maintain them at this point. Sidewalks, we're looking now at alternative uses of the sidewalks, but the primary role of the sidewalk, obviously, is for people to walk on. It's not even for bicycles. It's state law to ride a bicycle on a sidewalk. You're supposed to ride in the street. So these are primarily for people to walk on, but the secondary objective, and especially in this case, is for businesses to use the sidewalks in front of their stores to support their businesses, and primarily in this case for outdoor dining. I want to start by showing you the alleyways in the downtown area. Those yellow lines are the right-of-ways that are prescribed as alleyways. And it's an interesting set of grid marks that shows where pedestrians can walk. And alleyways are important. Right now, not many of our alleyways are what you would call attractive, but other communities have spent a lot of time and effort making theirs not only attractive, but useful and beneficial to their citizens. So we want to keep those alleyways in mind. Those blue lines, what you see are the sidewalks in the downtown area that, in my opinion, are wide enough to be considered for possible alternative uses. Everywhere else in town, the sidewalks are 3, 4, maybe 5 feet wide, and that's just barely wide enough for people to walk on. So really, that blue grid that you see there are the sidewalks we're addressing with this ordinance. And again, I'll show you a few slides of what other communities have done. Obviously, some of these sidewalks are much wider than the ones we're looking at, and it makes it a little easier to use it for both walking and outdoor dining or outdoor displays, outdoor things of other natures. We have other restaurants in the downtown area, but they're not using their sidewalks. Case of Salsa is using a patio that's part of their private property in front of their store. Spencer Deli and Fleming Street Bakery, they have tables set up on what it appears to be a sidewalk, but that's private property. So it's not really publicly maintained or publicly regulated sidewalks. They can do pretty much what they want to in front of their operation. Pinocchio's used to have outdoor dining. I don't think they're going to plan to go back to this anytime soon. They are looking at opening a pizza garden behind theirs. So that alleyway that I showed you initially would be integral to pedestrians getting to their outdoor pizza garden. But this is a good slide to show you what used to be out in front of Pinocchio's. And this is Roger Dogs, this street. And that's a little closer view of the tables that get set out in front of Roger Dogs. And that's basically where this conversation got started. Sometimes it's better to take a problem and turn it into an opportunity and really, instead of looking small, look big. Instead of thinking of one particular instance where we've got a little problem, maybe we should start thinking a little bigger about this issue. So I included a few slides for you tonight. The last one, these are all quotes out of your comprehensive land use plan that's been adopted and modified over the last couple of years. But the last one I think is most apropos. It says, designate a downtown cultural and arts district, officially designate the downtown area and encourage a mix of uses to create an active community center for culture and arts to include restaurants, entertainment, and housing opportunities. So this has long been a goal of this board and this town, is to not only identify some area downtown, but I would hope at that point, after identifying it, actually take the next steps and find ways to encourage that kind of growth and then to regulate that kind of growth. And that's what we're talking about tonight, is a regulation that would control the use, the alternative uses of sidewalks. This is one way to look at it. That's our new park. And within that park, we have the nice building out front that you can see from right here. If you look closely as you came in tonight, there's tables out there now, tables and chairs. And I've been begging for those for weeks and weeks and weeks, because every morning when I drive into work and park out front, I think, boy, it'd be nice to go out there and sit and have a cup of coffee. And I'm going to start doing that when it stops raining. We also have 2 picnic tables that are shown there in green within the park area. Staff has been talking about getting some umbrellas for those to make them a little more pleasant in the summer heat. But regardless, there are tables there that can be used for outdoor dining. There are places across the street, and I'll show you some more slides in a minute, what other communities have done as far as taking parking places and actually doing bump outs where you create new space that doesn't cause a problem with the use of the sidewalk. And of course, that upper left green rectangle is the area in front of Roger Dogs that is currently being used for their outdoor dining. And again, some more slides from other communities of how that outdoor dining can look. Sometimes it's just the table sitting out on the sidewalk. In this case, most of them are enclosed with some types of barriers to separate the diners from the sidewalk. These are some of the ideas about those bump outs for landscaping and for traffic control. Fifth Street is probably wide enough with the current traffic levels to have some of that installed that would not impede the use of the sidewalk, but would create spaces for other uses. And again, some big sidewalks, if we had some 20-foot wide sidewalks, we could think about doing these kind of things. But the one on the left especially shows some tables that are actually sitting out in the street. And that's the slide that I wanted you to see, that there are lots of opportunities to not only solve the problem that's in front of us, the problem that's been raised between two property users, but to actually take it a few steps farther and start trying to create this downtown entertainment district. So think big, execute small, accomplish great things over time. Spencer's world renowned for that now. Y'all have done some great things by thinking big, not being afraid to think big, and then piece by piece making those little things happen. And as you see sitting out in front of Town Hall now, a beautiful park that is something you should be proud of and this town should be proud of. So let me end up by showing you that there's the town park, and I think of that right now as our anchor tenant. If you add in the yellow lines, which are the alleyways, the blue lines, which are those sidewalks, you have a pedestrian grid that serves that area. You have an existing stock of buildings surrounding that area, some in use, some not in use. And you have some lots that are not developed or that should be redeveloped, including our old town hall, that could be a part of this entertainment district. And I think we're well on our way. I went out the day I was making the slideshow and took a few pictures, and just looking at what's there already, it's enough to make you proud of our downtown area, because a lot of our downtown stores look really, really nice. They've done a good job on their landscaping. Our sidewalks are clean. They're adequate for these kind of uses. Of course, the Transportation Museum right across the street helps a great deal too. And then looking back towards our park, there's one of those tables I was talking about to allow outdoor dining. Fifth Street's looking a little less attractive than some of those other areas. And I think that's where we can concentrate some of our initial thoughts about how to improve the downtown area and how to create an entertainment district and focus our initial efforts on Fifth Street. As I said earlier, Fifth Street's wide enough that we have a lot more options on Fifth Street than we would have anywhere else. So I think that the Fifth Street improvements can be Spencer's next big thing if y'all so decide to tell staff to go out there and make it happen. So back to this one. I took this to the planning board last month. They have not voted on it. They'll vote Monday to give you a recommendation on adoption of this ordinance. Two things that they brought up that I didn't have in the ordinance, and I'm not saying I support these or don't support them, but I wanted to let you know what they had said. One was to get rid of that garbage can that's out in front of the barbershop, and the other was actually to do away with planters. And my initial reaction to them was the town spent a lot of time and money and effort to put the planters in. I doubt if I could convince the board to take them out. But things evolve over time, and thinking evolves over time. So I wanted to bring those two suggestions back to you so you could see what the planning board came up with and maybe include that in some of your future thinking, if not your current thinking. You have in your packet, and tonight's purpose is to have a public hearing, and it doesn't look like you got anybody signed up to speak on it, but a proposed code amendment that would allow us to regulate the alternative use of the streets and alleyways. The program basically allows people to use those, but they have to get an encroachment permit approved by the town manager or his appointee. And I have a sneaking suspicion I might end up being the appointee. But maybe not. Maybe I'll leave it with him. But the encroachment agreement requires them to do a drawing with detailed measurements on it, with the goal of going back to one of those first slides that said the primary use of the sidewalk is for pedestrian traffic. So their sketch that they would include in their application for the encroachment permit would spell out how they are doing that. It would show where the pathway would be. It requires for restaurants, for outdoor dining, to have a 4-foot pathway. For people putting out static displays of merchandise, it requires them to maintain a 3-foot walkway. 3-foot walkway supposedly is wide enough for wheelchair or baby stroller use, and that's what you're shooting for. I won't go into the details of the ordinance. Hopefully you'll have a chance to think about that over the coming days. And then if you have any detailed questions, and I know Ms. Sledge will when she comes back, because she always does, I'll be glad to answer them at your meeting Tuesday night. But I will answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Blunt. Or do you have any questions at this point?
I do. Okay. What's the, in front of Roger Dog, what is the distance between the back of the planter and the front of the storefront, basically? You know the distance?
We went out and measured it one day, and the current distance from the planter to there's some plants that sit in front of the store, the
right.
2 potted plants.
Right.
There's more than 4 feet clearance between those. The actual, from the storefront to the planter, I'm not sure I remember what the measurement was on that. It appears that we waste a little space on the street side of the planters, but I would assume that back when we were getting DOT approval to put the planters in, they said you got to push them back so that cars don't ram them when they come in and park. So,
sometimes that works and sometimes it don't.
Yeah. But I'm sure that was the logic of it at the time. And again, it may be that the planters on Salisbury Avenue are the ones that provide the appearance improvements that we want for our community. And maybe the planning board had an interesting idea. Should we take out 1 or 2 of these planters on 5th Street to accommodate this entertainment district that I'm starting to try to get some thought about? Don't want to say no to anything, although I told them it would probably be not likely that we'd go out and tear down planters immediately. Joe Morris came up with an idea right when we were talking about it. Instead of tearing them out, build a tabletop that would actually fit on top of the planter, and high top chairs so that you could sit around that table. It would give you I forget what they call those tables. I've got one at my house, but the taller chairs instead of the short chairs.
Like a bistro.
Bistro tables. That's what
There
I
you go.
was trying to come up with.
I was gonna ask you, you know, if something of that nature could be ratified, or, you know, if I know in the one slide you showed about taking out the box, you know, if that was the case, that would make more space as well. But that idea of putting the high top bistro style, you know, that sounds beautiful. I mean, you know, of course, you know, it would be, you know, utilizing space that's already there, and that would be less, shall I say, less time and cost that public works would have to go over there, if I'm correct.
Like I've lost control of this again.
In a moment, there'll be an opportunity for a public
Absolutely.
hearing. So you're fine, thank you.
So there's the planters. Again, the bistro table idea, there's not any tall trees in those 2 right now, I don't think. So it wouldn't be a matter of cutting down a tree to put in a bistro table. The part of the problem that we have, I want to go back to one of the very first slides. That slide right there. If they applied for an encroachment agreement and measured the table and those chairs, they could very easily maintain the 4-foot walkway. From a practical point of view, they can't control their customers and say you can't slide your chair back. And therefore, that gets you into the need for some of this stuff, which is the temporary or semi-permanent barriers that designates where the seating for the tables can be, versus just having a chair and table out in the space. The ordinance is written such that the encroachment agreement requires that sketch showing how it's to be laid out so that we can confirm that it actually has a chance of working. And then the language of the ordinance says the encroachment agreement can be revoked if we find out that in operation the plan's being either violated or it's not really workable like it showed on paper. So it gives us some flexibility to try to work with the property owners to continually improve and resolve the problem. And it might be that some of those barriers might be needed in this case to keep the folks out of that 4-foot clear right of way. Any other questions?
So I have a couple questions, a couple comments. One is, I think what got at the heart of this issue wasn't the sidewalks to begin with. It was the alleyways.
That's what I thought, but in talking to the property owners, I'm not sure that was 100% true.
Well, but I also think part of the alleyway issue was the concern that it is a shared space and tables there were blocking the pathway. Tables were there because of a lack of shade, because folks are having to sit outside, because the owners of the restaurant have not opened the inside back up following COVID. And that's a choice that they've made. And the outdoor dining, I'm a huge proponent of outdoor dining, right? And so I love this idea of studying the entertainment district and trying to promote more of that sort of thing, while making sure that we're providing adequate continuous access from a mobility standpoint, whether it's for ADA compliance and folks that are walking and things like that. So I think you're on the right track with a lot of these strategies that we're talking about, but what I don't want to lose sight of is the original issue with the alleyways. We need to make sure we're figuring that issue out as well, not just the sidewalk issue.
In our attempt, and this is pretty much a copy of Concord's, and I doubt that they have alleyways that they're worried about in their downtown area, but the same approach will be used for the alleyways. An encroachment agreement would have to be issued by the town.
Maintaining. The only thing I would say is the alleyways are different because they are intended for traffic as well. And
so it would require some agreement between adjacent property owners, in this case, to say, okay, this is what I'd like to do. Is it okay with you? And then an encroachment agreement would be approved based on that agreement. We don't want to block alleyways that are used for actual vehicle access. And as I mentioned earlier, this alleyway would be a perfect way to get down to Pinocchio's outdoor pizza garden. So it may be that if somebody wants to use the alleyway for outdoor dining at this point, we would have to say no, that we need to keep it open for vehicular traffic. Surprisingly, one day, the day I was out taking those pictures downtown, a guy on a recumbent bicycle came zooming into that alleyway, headed south. So, it does get used for vehicle use.
And so, all that to say, I think there's a way to avoid having to impact the alleyway because there is ample, if you look at that, there's ample space out there for outdoor seating. The issue is not that there's not space. The issue is the sun in the summertime and the heat and everything like that.
Yeah.
So that brings me to my next point is, we intentionally removed some of the larger crepe myrtle trees because of their location and proximity to the sidewalk. They were getting in the way of the sidewalk. They were getting in the way of the buildings. They had become more of a nuisance there on 4th Street and 5th Street. And that's why those smaller trees are there. And so, the idea of removing the planters there, I think, should be considered. But I also want to make sure, I think we talked about a street tree program. I think downtown in this area now at the park, we do have shade over there, but having some type of shade tree program right in this downtown core to provide some additional shade, like some of those you're seeing there, I think we really need to look into that. And so that may mean pulling some of those, putting trees closer to the street in several locations and maintaining space then where those planters are for outdoor dining and things like that.
Possibly.
Or the bump outs.
Put them in the street.
Yeah.
Put the trees in the street.
Because, that's 5th Street's wide enough to be able to do stuff like that, I think. Mm-hmm. So, like you say, there are possibilities. I think there are options we need to look into those things.
The ordinance that I presented you is something, and the last slide shows you the next steps. I'd like to see it adopted with whatever changes you feel are necessary. This is just the first conversation about the entertainment district. I just want to get y'all thinking about it, get your feedback on it, get the community involved in talking about it. We don't have an overload of problems right now. We've got very minimal problems as far as our downtown, but we are growing. We're growing rapidly, and we could see another 3 or 4 restaurants overnight. And this is something we can get ahead of.
And I think we want to attract that, right?
Absolutely.
And so to be able to be prepared for that, to be able to recruit and try and attract some of those businesses while keeping our current business.
Absolutely.
I think that's important,
That's right.
whether they're restaurants or other businesses.
And I have shared this ordinance with both of the property owners involved here, the Mr. White at the barbershop and Pam at Broderick Dogs. I brought you a copy of it. Okay, I brought you a copy of it. Told you to call me if you had any questions. Okay, I'm sorry. And I've given a copy of it to Anthony at Pinocchio's, and he has not responded back with any questions about it at this time. Like I said, I don't think he's planning to use the sidewalk.
All right, board, other questions before we get to the public hearing?
Yeah, I do. And first, I apologize to the board for being a little late. I got caught at work, so my apologies. Not so much worried about 4th and 5th Street because the nature of I think, like we've been talking about, 5th Street's wide enough for bump outs or to enlarge the sidewalk, or, you know, the folks down here, they have a lot more room over here. And even the stuff on 4th Street, those buildings are set back. But I'm worried about Salisbury Avenue. How much space between the planters, or because I know I see planters or light posts or let's see, public art or the benches, how much space is in there? I mean, I know it's not much.
The sidewalk, the overall sidewalk on the Salisbury Avenue side is actually wider than on the 5th Street side. But I think the planters are actually set back a little farther from the street. I don't know the exact measurements, but I think the clear space from the planters to the wall is about the same. There's just a little more space on the street side.
And so you've got 2 paths of travel, continuous paths of travel there. So that section in front of the planters appears to be about 4 feet. And then behind it's more than that. And so technically you've got 2 continuous sidewalks there.
And you can see from where he had his table set originally, it's on the brick paver portion, which is in line with the planters. And it would appear from that picture that there's more than adequate space behind those tables, between the tables and the building for walking space.
So,
Well, one of the things that happens right there, though, and maybe not so much now because the street's been restriped in a little bit different pattern. Is that the current striping, or is that different?
That is old striping.
That's what I was saying. Okay, is that essentially that distance between? And I know it is probably 3 or 4 feet, but that distance between the planters and the road. I mean, a lot, especially if you get trucks or vans. I mean, they all take that.
Yeah.
that's why our planter boxes.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I mean, realistically, it's planter corner this side to the buildings is usable on most days, at most times, if there's any type of stuff going on at all. You know, they probably have a little more space. They being Pinocchio's because again, the building sits back a little bit. But again, all up and down Salisbury Avenue, again, a lot of those businesses aren't open right now. So, and I guess that's kind of my only real concern. And I realize this is an initial conversation, and I looking through this, most of the stuff I don't hate it. I mean, I think it actually works and it makes sense. But I don't want to get in a situation where we're in, and I'm going to use a phrase that I Googled and I'll give a definition so everyone knows my definition of this, but where the tail wags the dog. That the Merriam-Webster definition is when something smaller controls something larger rather than the dog wagging the tail. I don't want to get a situation where one dispute amongst two people influences something on 10 or 12 or 15 or 20 businesses, and we pass something and realize we have to go back and undo it. And so I don't hate this. I mean, a lot of it makes sense. I just think we have to be deliberate about this, because then we get stuck and we have to back up. But that's my comment on that.
So I think the critical thing, right, is that a continuous path of accessible travel is maintained on the sidewalk. And I think what we're, I don't know that anybody disagrees with that. The question is, how do you enforce it, right? And I think that's where what is being proposed is that there's a way to enforce that. There's a way to have a review of it, to be able to approve it, and then be able to monitor and address that. I do have a question for you relative to having a difference between outdoor dining and retail. ADA compliance, ADA sidewalks must be 48 inches minimum. And so I think in order to justify that, it needs to be for no matter what the situation, it needs to be a minimum 48 inches of travel.
If you'll note in the copy that we gave you, I left yellow highlighting on those two numbers because I was confused at the beginning why we had two different distances. I think that the thinking was that start with 48 inches where somebody's going to be sitting in a chair and is likely to slide the chair back some at some point or lean back on the chair. And then for merchandise that's going to be static, make it the minimum 3. But I have no problem at all with changing that to 4 on both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think whatever a minimum design and construction of a sidewalk which is 48 inches, I believe, should be the.
Our development ordinance requires 5-foot sidewalks now, and but we have a lot of 3-foot sidewalks throughout the town. So I agree. ADA is probably going to require you to go with 4 foot. The ramps at the ends of the streets, I would imagine the ramp area is 3 feet wide to accommodate a wheelchair more than anything else, and that the actual cutout is probably 4 feet.
We just need to verify that, and I think whatever we propose in the ordinance needs to agree with those ADA accessibility guidelines. Because that's the ultimate goal of what we're trying to get at. We're trying to allow businesses to conduct business that is going to bring business in, but I think but the intent of the sidewalks is for travel, and so if we can maintain
the primary use, absolutely.
Yeah. Board, other questions or comments?
I apologize for being late. No excuse. My question though is, since I did come in late, has there been any discussion about the alleyway?
The same approach would be used, the same ordinance would be used for the use of alleyways, and that an encroachment agreement would have to be agreed to, and the manager or his designee in the process of approving that encroachment agreement would have to determine if allowing an alternative use of an alleyway was going to block the primary use of an alleyway, which in addition to pedestrian use is motor vehicle use. So if the alleyway is actively being used for motor vehicle passage, then the manager or his designee would not issue the encroachment agreement. And any agreement, because the alleyways in most cases have different property owners on either side, the property owners would have to agree with it. There would have to be some mutual agreement that this is how we'll use this section of the alleyway. The ordinance has a lot of objective qualities to it. The subjective part is that it has to be reviewed and approved by the manager or his appointee, and he can reject it for any reason.
Other questions before we hear from our citizens? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Blunt.
Thank you.
All right. We do not have anyone signed up for the public hearing, but I do see some people came in after we started, so I'm sure we have some folks that want to speak. So what I'm going to ask is we'll open the public hearing at this point. We will see who wants to speak. You'll have 3 minutes to be able to speak. We do have a timer that'll be brought up, but when you come forward, I ask that you state your name and address for the record. and then we'll give you your 3 minutes. And our intent tonight is that we hear from the public and hear input, either for or against, or just general considerations that we need to make as we consider this ordinance before us. So with that, if you will, show with a show of hands, show me if you are here to speak tonight for public comment. Okay, we've got 2 individuals. All right, so Mr. White, I believe we saw you first. If you'll come forward and again, just state your name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes.
Charles White, 109A 5th Street is where my business is. I think a lot of this is because of what's happened between me and the business owner next to me. I'm not against whatever will make this town better. That's why I'm here. But I am against people who think they can do whatever they want to do and think it's okay. As long as it's done right, I have no problem with going along with it. If it can be worked out to have them have chairs out on the sidewalk, as long as pedestrians can go through. I've been here for 7 years and I haven't seen it done fair. They put the chairs out where they want them and it don't make no difference. Even if I wanted to walk through there, they feel like they can just put the tables and chairs out there. They got plants out there. I heard you mention that they have the flower pots out there. Even if you put places with a top over it, people had chairs, it could be on the street side. But if it was on the sidewalk side, it wouldn't work. So those are just things that I see being there. I'm there. It's not enough space, in my opinion, because they got plants out there. If they would move the plants, it would provide more space. If you remove the plant pot holder thing, if you remove that, it would provide more space. But the space that's there is just not enough space for them to put tables and chairs out there and then for people to ride their bike or somebody to walk up and down. I've seen people have to walk out in the street once they get to their area because it's not enough space. So I don't know how you would work that out. I heard you say 48 minutes. I meant 48 feet or 48 inches. I can't see that barrier right there would help to make it accessible for people to walk back and forth. You'd have to move it. So as far as me being there and seeing what's going on, nobody has came to me and asked me anything. He came and dropped off something to the lady, and she said, well, you may as well talk to Mr. White. Didn't say a word to him. He came to the shop, dropped off a paper, talked to me about doing his hair on his face. Nothing about this that's going on. He did tell me we were having a meeting. I'm a little late getting here, but I can't say he did that. But as far as giving me information about what's going on, I barely know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. All right, and I believe I saw Ms. Penix next. Again, come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
I am sorry, and my name is Pam Penix, 111 5th Street in Spencer. I'm so sorry this has happened. I have not asked for this. I've been here for a long time. He just came and dropped off a paper. That's all he did, and that's all he said. Now, as far as the tables, they are 4 feet. We've measured. We've changed chairs. We push them back. There's wheelchairs that go through there. There's buggies that go through there. Little kids ride the bicycles through there. Everybody walks through there. Nobody has had a problem. We have had no issues with that. The people that walk in the streets, they do that on their own, and I always say you can walk in here. Some of his customers prefer to go that way. They don't want to come through our stuff. Everybody talks to everybody. His customers talk to us all the time. We all socialize. As far as the alley goes, we've had no issues till the end of last summer. And we do this because me and my husband both have underlying health conditions. We cannot open it back up. We will have to shut our doors. And I'm really suffering because of the heat. And I mean, the people going everywhere else because they can't come and be relaxed. People are still supporting me. They love eating in their cars. They have their own trays to eat in the cars. They don't want us to change anything. And as the 4 feet, there is 4 feet. And I did not see no issues. I had a lady who walked 4 blocks, her and her son. She's 80-some years old. Her son had cancer, had his tongue cut out. They were up there and it was hot. She said, can we sit in the alley? I said, well, we're not using the alley right now. And that's before he started all this stuff. And we had no issues. He didn't come to us. I went to him, I put them over on their side, one table over there on his side. As he says, I didn't know there was a side. He's brought all this up. I said, I put him over there. He come out, and I had him way down at the bottom of the alley. He come out and said, you need to ask them to leave. I said, Mr. White, they are sick, 80 years old. I said, can they please not stay here? Can you not, is this not a Christian way that we can share and be nice to each other? No, if you don't ask them to leave, I'm calling the cops on you. I said, you're going to do what? Call the cops on you. I said, okay. So at that time I left and I came over here and I was devastated because I've never had a problem with anybody. I get along with everybody. And I have never had an issue. And as far as that alley, where that alley is, that building is too narrow for trucks and cars to hardly get through there anyway. I'm only in there from, most time we don't use it to like 12 to 2 or 2:30. 2 or 3 hours is all I'm asking. And I move those tables if anybody wants to move. And anybody can come through there at any time. Bicycle, walk, whatever. And there's wheelchairs and everything. I've got more to say, but that's it. And I apologize, but my blood pressure has been sky high. And right now it's like 214 over 98. I came tonight because I'm tired. I'm so sorry this has happened.
Thank you, Mrs. Penix. All right, is there anyone else that would like to speak? Mr. Howe, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
I'm Keith Howe, one of the owners of the Band Addict Music Company here in Spencer, 514 South Salisbury Avenue. We've been in business for 12 years, all 12 years from day one in Spencer. We've never been anywhere else and have no intention of leaving. Love it here. Great business. We service 4 counties. We service school systems. We employ about 8 individuals, and we've been very, very blessed. I'm here representing the other vendors, the other merchants in Spencer. I was concerned that I may be coming tonight to hear the board maybe considering a policy that may handcuff the rest of us. I'm delighted, and I think all of us would agree that you're here to do something that's progressive and smart, that's going to head off problems and not handcuff the rest of us. Both of these folks are good people. They have good businesses, but I was concerned, and I think others were, that there might be a policy coming that was going to, hurt the rest of us. And I'm glad to hear you're not doing it. Thank you for doing your job. Someone should say thank you to you occasionally, and I want to do that. So thank you very much on behalf of the other merchants here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. That is something we don't get very often. Thank you, so appreciate it. All right, anyone else wishing to speak this evening? All right, seeing no others, board, is there a motion to close the public hearing this evening?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Mr. Muhammad. All in favor? All right, all opposed? And the public hearing is now closed this evening. So thank you all for coming and speaking. We appreciate it. So again, we are not acting on anything this evening. We will be discussing further next Tuesday at our meeting. So feel free to come back then for more of the fun. I do want to say just one thing, though, because sitting here, I kind of felt like Judge Judy for a moment. And I just want to reiterate that the role of this board is not to try and mediate disagreements between individuals. It's to consider items, concerns that have been brought before us and how that impacts the greater good of all of Spencer, both our citizens and our businesses. And so what I want to say is to the two of y'all, this is a personality disagreement is what it started with, I believe. And my request to the two of y'all, we want to find a way that everybody can work and that we can maintain travel paths and all of that. But as neighbors, so often what we get are neighbors, whether it's people that live in houses in our community that are neighbors, that they have disagreements or they have personality conflicts or they just do things differently than one another. My request to you would be that you come together, find a way. I'm not asking you to be friends. I'm not asking you but I'm asking you to try and find a way to coexist so that both of your businesses can thrive. Sir, you've had your chance, okay?
I wanted to make a comment.
No, it's fine. We can talk afterwards. I'd love to talk with either of you.
Well, I'd like to speak to you.
Absolutely. What I want you to understand, though, is you two have businesses that are vital to this community.
Yes.
And the success of them and you being in this community 10 years from now or more is critical to our success. And it means that both of you are going to have to be around, and that means both of you need to find a way to work together. The town is going to try and work with you to make all of your businesses better, right? We want to be able, Mr. Blunt shared with potential streetscape improvements and things like that. That's us trying to make the greater good of Spencer better. And as we do that, to help make your businesses better as well. But in order for us to be able to do that, we've got to have y'all working together as neighbors. And so I'd ask you, please, please do that. If y'all can do that, we can make great things happen on our end as well. All right? So thank you both for being here. Thank you for speaking and letting us hear both perspectives. And again, we'll talk more about this next week at our meeting. So thank you. All right, board, we are going to move forward. And the next items are to review our agenda for the August 12th meeting. And so we will need a volunteer to do the invocation next Tuesday. Do I have a volunteer? Mr. Muhammad, you are my man. You are quick to volunteer, so I appreciate that. That's great.
Here to serve.
We'll then do the Pledge of Allegiance as we always do. We'll consider additions and deletions to the agenda and then adopt the agenda. We currently have two recognitions on our agenda. The first will be a recognition for a very dear friend of Spencer's and an advocate for us, Elizabeth from the Salisbury Post, who is retiring. And while we hate that, we're happy for her, and we definitely want to find a way to recognize her. So we'll be recognizing her with a proclamation. And then we will also be recognizing our dear friend Sky Allen, who's been so instrumental in helping out the town with our mural projects and a variety of other projects as well. And Mr. Franzese will do that. Are there other recognitions that the board wishes to make on Tuesday? Mr. Franzese?
Well, since he's actually left, we're aware of another recognition in the works for this evening, and it may be that we want to reiterate that on Tuesday,
That'd be nice.
perhaps, and I can work that out with that person, maybe bring their token of recognition back. But
Very good.
Want to mention that.
Okay, so that'll be a third. The other thing I think we need to make note of, and I would love to recognize, I'm not sure if we have a plan for it, is the work that the fire department did recently with our fire camp. I think we need to recognize that as well. They put up with my son for 3 days, so they definitely deserve recognition for that.
I'm hoping there's some sort of photo slideshow again this year because I love it every time.
Right. So if you will, just talk to Chief Lanning and see if he's planning something during his time. If not, we definitely want to do a recognition during the recognition period. Anything else, board?
I think you need maybe to recognize Chief Lanning for what he's.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not qualified to do that, but I think somebody needs to do
I'd
it.
be happy to do that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We'll then have public comment. Yes.
I'm gonna say, can we also, I guess, I don't know if we could recognize the students going back to school?
Yes.
Recognize the students and
And
the
teachers.
staff.
Yeah, faculty, staff.
Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to?
I'll be glad to do
Thank
that.
you very much.
I noticed today I couldn't get out of my driveway. 3 o'clock.
I'm hoping they get the logistics of that worked
Oh, my
out.
goodness.
That's okay, I can go the other way.
But I said we're gonna have to pay you another route.
That's a
All
nice
right.
attitude, Pat. I like that.
Board, the only item we have on our consent agenda proposed currently are our approval of minutes from last month. And so as we go through this evening, there's not a lot proposed on the agenda for Tuesday, but if there is anything we want to move to consent, we can. So item 8 would be to consider adopting ordinance 25-15, and that would be for what we just heard related to the creation of an encroachment agreement process for the use of sidewalks and alleyways. So we definitely want that as a regular agenda item. And then item 9 is to consider adopting an ordinance that would make the keeping of chickens on residential lots a part of our normal regulations following our pilot program that we ran. And I would say we definitely want this on the regular agenda because I simply want to hear Steve's presentation on this.
Absolutely.
I will say that the citizen who was very actively involved in asking me to see if we could get something done about it has now rehomed her chickens because she's moving. She's getting married and moving to another place. Probably going to keep this house, but in the future. But she has rehomed her chickens to a farm that was further outside of the city limits.
Very good. All right. And then item 10 will be to consider authorizing the manager to execute a third amendment to the Spencer Partnership Special Event Agreement. And this is in relation to the proposed Labor Day street dance that the Spencer JCs are proposing. Board, is that something that we want to consider authorizing the manager to execute that amendment? Is that something that we want to hear about, or do we want to put that on the consent agenda?
Consent sounds good to me.
Well, only thing about it, you're advertising the street, even though it's not a lot of people listen to it, but.
I would suggest, I think we can do that. I think we can do that as part of our board comments.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
okay, we'll do it like that as far as that goes. Yeah, that's fine.
It's more of a publicity thing.
Yeah.
Does that work? Somebody just remind me to talk about that at the end. All right.
So that's gonna be on the consent.
That'll be on consent, yeah. Okay, and then we'll have our departmental reports, town manager report, and requests and comments from the mayor and board in an executive session if needed. Mr. Dees will not be with us on Tuesday because he's gallivanting across Europe, and I'm very jealous of it. And so anything needed for executive session legal related, we will need to postpone that. All right, board, anything else that needs to be put on the agenda for Tuesday? All right, any reason for executive session this evening? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Muhammad, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Moody. All in favor? All right, all opposed? We stand adjourned, thank you all.